Why do you say that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying over our heads?
Well, because I know that they are. They've been visiting this planet for thousands of years.
I can see like lines coming down below, but can't see anything below it.
In a schoolyard with about 20 other men, and we saw a bright light just above the treetops. It changed color, and then it stayed there for a while, and then it disappeared into the distance.
We're going to move on out of that mysterious close encounter. This object you see here was caught on camera flying past the SpaceX rocket just minutes after liftoff last week.
For decades, the possibility of extraterrestrial life has fascinated and mystified people. Are we truly alone in the universe, or have beings from other worlds already visited us?
Are we alone? Is Earth really the only planet with life, or is something else out there?
Sightings of unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, continue to spark debate and speculation. One such sighting over Jerusalem's Dome of the Rock left witnesses stunned. A glowing orb descended, hovered, and then vanished into the sky in a flash of light. Today, we explore this mysterious encounter and its unanswered questions.
This morning that some say may be proof we're not alone in the universe. A UFO in the form of a bright light is seen descending over the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem.
Imagine standing in the ancient city of Jerusalem, a place steeped in thousands of years of history. People from all over the world come here to visit the sacred site of the Dome of the Rock, a spiritual monument to many faiths. On a seemingly ordinary day, something extraordinary happened. Eyewitnesses reported seeing an inexplicable white orb floating down from the sky like a silent messenger from the beyond. Hovering just above the Dome of the Rock, this mysterious glowing object seemed almost serene, defying any logical explanation. It lingered for what felt like minutes, leaving witnesses both awestruck and anxious. And then, without warning, it released a blinding flash of energy, illuminating the sky with a brief but powerful burst. Before anyone could fully comprehend what had just occurred, the object shot upwards at a mind-boggling speed, vanishing into the heavens as quickly as it had appeared. Videos of the event quickly surfaced across multiple platforms, leaving many to wonder what exactly had transpired. This was no isolated incident. The sighting was captured from different angles by multiple cameras, each recording the same bizarre scene. News outlets, including MSNBC, broadcast the footage, and discussions on social media reached a fever pitch. People began asking the same question: was this a real UFO sighting, or just an incredibly sophisticated hoax? If it were a prank, it would undoubtedly be one of the most elaborate ever conceived. After all, the object moved in a way that seemed to defy all known technological capabilities. The way it shot into the sky at an impossible speed left even skeptics scratching their heads. No aircraft we know of, not even top-secret military prototypes, have been shown to exhibit such behavior. Could it be an advanced military test hidden in plain sight? Or was it something more? Something from beyond our world? Despite all the footage and eyewitness testimony, no definitive answer has emerged. Some believe the sighting was genuine evidence of extraterrestrial life visiting Earth, while others remain skeptical, convinced that it was a carefully orchestrated fake. Whatever the case, the Jerusalem UFO continues to be a source of fascination and controversy, fueling ongoing debates about the existence of life beyond our planet. Travis Walton, the man who was taken. While UFO sightings like this one in Jerusalem spark curiosity and wonder, stories of alien abductions take that fascination to a much darker and more unsettling place. The idea of being taken against one's will by unknown beings is terrifying, and few cases have garnered as much attention as the alleged abduction of Travis Walton. It was November trees, a bright glowing light happened during those missing days was nothing short of extraordinary. According to Walton, the room was triangular in shape with walls that seemed to glow softly, casting an eerie light over the strange figure standing nearby. These beings, with their large brown eyes and oversized heads, were unlike anything Walton had ever seen before. They stood under 5 feet tall and wore soft, billowy orange-brown overalls. Their skin was pale and smooth, and they moved in a manner that was both fluid and unnerving. Instinctively, Walton lashed out, attacking the creatures in an attempt to escape. They retreated, leaving him alone in the room. Desperate to find a way out, Walton explored the strange craft, moving from room to room in search of an exit. Eventually, he encountered a human-like figure, a large muscular man wearing a helmet, who led him out of the craft and into what appeared to be a massive warehouse. Inside were several other saucers similar to the one he had seen in the forest. The man led him into another room where he was greeted by more human-like figures, 2 men and a woman, all of whom had strikingly attractive features. Their skin was smooth, free of any blemishes, scars, or wrinkles. The investigation into Walton's disappearance left many questions unanswered. Despite extensive testing, including polygraphs and psychiatric evaluations, no one could provide a definitive explanation for what had happened to him. The case of Linda Napolitano, an abduction in New York City. The story of Linda Napolitano, also known as the Brooklyn Bridge abduction, is one of the most chilling and debated abduction cases on record. On the night of November 30th, 1989, around 3:15 a.m., Linda was asleep in her 12th floor apartment in the Lower East Side of Manhattan when she awoke to a strange sensation. Disoriented and groggy, she became aware of short, humanoid figures standing around her bed. The beings were small, around 4 feet tall, with large almond-shaped eyes and pale, almost translucent skin. In a state of paralysis, Linda tried to wake her husband, who was sleeping beside her, but no matter how hard she tried, he wouldn't stir. It was as if some invisible force was preventing her from making contact with him. The beings seemed to communicate telepathically, instructing her to remain calm and quiet in a language she couldn't understand, yet somehow comprehended. The next moment, Linda experienced something out of a science fiction movie. She felt herself being lifted out of bed, defying gravity as she floated through the air. Outside the window, suspended in a beam of blue-white light, Linda was carried through the sky. Her apartment was on the 12th floor, yet she was floating out of her window, moving higher and higher into the night. Beneath her, the city lights of Manhattan twinkled like stars, but her destination was far from earthly. Above her hovered a clamshell-shaped spacecraft, into which she was drawn by the beam. Once inside the craft, Linda's recollections grow hazy. She remembered being placed on a cold metallic table, surrounded by the same beings that had taken her from her apartment. They began performing experiments on her, inserting strange instruments into her body, including one that was placed inside her nose. The pain and confusion were overwhelming, but before long, Linda lost consciousness. When she awoke, it was nearly 2 hours later, and she was back in her bed as if nothing had happened. Her husband remained sound asleep beside her, completely unaware of the terrifying ordeal she had just experienced. For a long time, Linda kept the experience to herself, fearing no one would believe her. However, her story took a strange turn when, in 1991, she sought medical advice for persistent discomfort in her nose. She reached out to her niece, Lisa Bayer, who was a podiatric surgeon. Upon taking an X-ray of Linda's nasal cavity, Lisa found something unusual. A small, cylindrical object embedded deep within her nose, something that had no business of being there. The object had strange spiral extensions that curled outward, an anomaly that left both Linda and her family baffled. Things grew even stranger when Linda claimed the object had been removed during a subsequent abduction. When she visited a specialist, they confirmed that the object was indeed gone, but a distinct ridge of built-up cartilage remained, marking where the foreign object had once been embedded. The presence of this physical evidence lent credibility to Linda's story, as it was hard to dismiss the X-rays and the medical findings that followed. However, what truly sets the case of Linda Napolitano apart from others are the alleged witnesses. In 1991, ufologist Bud Hopkins, who had been working closely with Linda to document her experience, received a letter from an anonymous police officer. In the letter, the officer described an extraordinary event that he and his partner had witnessed on the night of Linda's abduction. The two officers were stationed underneath the FDR bridge when they saw a bright blue light illuminating the sky above them. What shocked them was the sight of a woman seemingly floating in midair alongside three small humanoid figures as they ascended into the light. The officers were paralyzed with fear and confusion, unsure of what to do. They later confessed that they felt guilty for not intervening, and the memory of the event haunted them for years. One of the officers, overwhelmed by the experience, suffered a nervous breakdown and spent countless nights parked outside Linda's building, trying to make sense of what he had witnessed. The two officers, identified only as Richard and Dan, eventually reached out to Linda in person, desperate to understand what had transpired that night. Although Linda initially followed Hopkins' advice to avoid contact with them, she eventually spoke with the officers, who revealed more about what they had seen. In a startling twist, Richard and Dan disclosed that they were not just any ordinary police officers, but bodyguards assigned to protect a high-profile political figure on the night of the abduction. According to the officers, this important political figure had been with them when they witnessed Linda's abduction. And he, too, had signed the letter sent to Hopkins, albeit under the pseudonym Him. UFO researchers have long speculated that this political figure was none other than Javier Perez de Cuellar, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, though this has never been confirmed. While the involvement of such a high-profile figure would seem to lend credence to Linda's story, skeptics were quick to point out the many inconsistencies in the accounts provided by Richard and Dan. Some investigators have suggested that the two officers never existed at all, and that they were figments of either Linda's imagination or part of an elaborate hoax orchestrated by Linda and Hopkins. Others argue that there were at least 23 witnesses on record who corroborated some of Linda's experience, including friends, family members, and even workers at a nearby New York post. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence came from a letter written by an investigative reporter named Stephen Dunleavy, who worked at the Post and claimed to have witnessed strange lights in the sky on the night in question. Despite the skeptical backlash, Linda has remained steadfast in her account, insisting that what she experienced was real. In her words, "If I was hallucinating, then the witnesses saw my hallucination. That sounds crazier than the whole abduction phenomenon." Frederick Valentich, the pilot who never came back.
As it's flying past, it's a long shape, cannot identify more than that it has such speed.
While some alien abduction stories end with the return of the person involved, not all encounters have a clear resolution. One of the most unsettling cases in UFO lore is that of Frederick Valentich, a young Australian pilot who disappeared without a trace in 1978 after reporting a strange encounter in the sky.
It's got a green light and sort of metallic and all shiny on the outside.
He was definitely under stress.
Delta Sierra Juliet, it's just vanished.
On the evening of October 21st, 1978, 20-year-old Valentich took off from Moorabbin Airport in Victoria, Australia, for a routine flight to King Island in Tasmania. It was a clear evening with good visibility, and the flight was only expected to take about an hour. Valentich, eager to log more flight hours, was alone in his Cessna 182L aircraft as he flew over the Bass Strait. Everything seemed normal until Valentich made a call to Melbourne Air Traffic Control at 7:06 p.m. Valentich asked if there were any other known aircraft in the area, as he had spotted something unusual flying above him. Air Traffic Control confirmed that there were no other planes nearby, but Valentich persisted. He described the object as a large aircraft with 4 bright lights, moving at a high speed. At one point, Valentich said, "It seems to be playing some sort of game. He's flying over me. It's not an aircraft." As the conversation continued, Valentich's descriptions grew more alarming. He mentioned that the object was metallic and seemed to reflect light. At one point, he even stated, "It's hovering, and it's not an aircraft." His final transmission at 7:12 p.m. was cut off by 17 seconds by a strange metallic scraping sound. After that, there was only silence. Valentich, along with his plane, had vanished. Search efforts were immediately launched, scouring the vast strait and surrounding areas for any sign of wreckage or evidence of what had happened. Despite an extensive 4-day search, nothing was ever found. Valentich had simply disappeared, leaving behind only his cryptic final transmissions. Adding to the mystery, numerous witnesses reported seeing strange lights and cigar-shaped objects in the sky near the area where Valentich disappeared. Some claimed the lights were consistent with UFO sightings in the weeks leading up to the incident. However, neither Valentich's body nor his plane was ever recovered, leaving the case shrouded in speculation and intrigue. Years later, some skeptics proposed that Valentich may have become disoriented or even hallucinated during the flight, while others theorized a potential mechanical failure. However, no official explanation has been confirmed, and the disappearance remains one of Australia's most enduring UFO mysteries. For decades, the topic of extraterrestrial life has both intrigued and baffled people. Are we alone in the universe? Or have we already been visited by beings from distant planets? From ancient cave drawings to modern-day reports, sightings of unidentified flying objects have captivated public interest, sparking widespread debate and speculation. One such sighting over Jerusalem shook both believers and skeptics alike, but it was far from the only puzzling encounter. The tales of alien abductions, like those of Travis Walton and Linda Napolitano, delve deeper into the question of what might exist beyond our world. Could these stories be figments of overactive imaginations, or are they chilling accounts of real otherworldly encounters? So what are your thoughts? We'd love to hear your perspective, so please leave a comment and subscribe for more.